Welcome to Let's Get to Work, Reimagining Disability Inclusive Employment Policy, brought to you by the Burton Blatt Institute at Syracuse University. And now, here's your host, Michael Morris.
Welcome to yet another exciting episode of Let's Get to Work, Reimagining Disability Inclusive Employment Policy, a policy think tank that has turned to podcasts and interviewing outstanding guest experts who really can help solve the intractable challenges of bringing more people with disabilities into the workforce. I'm so excited today to have with us one of those experts, known not just in the U.S., but in other parts of the world. Nicholas Wyman is the Executive Director of the Institute for Workforce Skills and Innovation. It's an exciting collaborative that's working effectively with government, nonprofits, and businesses to address the dynamic workforce needs of employers of all sizes, really looking at how can we bring people with disabilities into an inclusive workforce through these innovative partnerships. He is also the author of the award-winning book, Job University, How to Find Wealth and Success by Developing the Skills Companies Actually Need. Nicholas, it's such a pleasure to have you with us today. I look forward to our conversation.
Thanks, Michael. It's a privilege to be here with you today. And I just wanted to say congratulations to everyone involved in the podcast. It's been fantastic to listen to and always leaves me with something to think about.
Excellent. Well, you're going to do the same for the many listeners who will get a chance to hear from you across the country. Let's start with just a little bit of background in terms of this is all about workforce development and career paths. Can you share with us a little bit about your own career path that led to the creation of IWSI?
I'm actually dyslexic. It wasn't picked up when I was actually in high school, and I really like to learn, learn by doing and learn with my head and my hands. And I was fortunate enough to secure an apprenticeship in commercial cookery as a chef. And so I started off with an international hotel chain, a US hotel chain called the Regent. That had like the Regent Beverly Wilshire and a few other hotels listeners might remember. And it was a great learning experience. It was a very structured workplace, had a fantastic human resources department. And I started with 4 other apprentices, and every year they took on an intake of 4 apprentices. So at any one time, there was like 16 apprentices in this hotel. So you got not only to earn and learn, but you sort of had this camaraderie of going through this learning experience with others. And I really saw the power of apprenticeship. And fast forward, I ended up representing my country. You probably picked up a bit of an accent there, represented Australia in the Culinary Olympics. There is such a thing. It's in Germany every 4 years, and that led to some exciting opportunities to work in the United Kingdom. I worked at Claridge's in London and Gleneagles Hotel in Scotland. So I really got to see, the power of apprenticeship. And, fast forward several decades, I'm still working, engaging people in the world of work. And actually our organisation has a heritage back 40 years. And over that time, we've actually graduated 20,000 apprentices. So it really shows, the model can work at scale in any industry.
Wow. So what a wonderful background in terms of you don't just teach others about building apprenticeship programs. You began by experiencing it yourself, and it's probably really continued your passion and drive to help make this work. Can you tell for our listeners some basic information? What are critical elements of an apprenticeship program, and how is it different than other skill development options?
Right. So I'd say the first, for those who want to look into apprenticeship either as an employer taking on apprentices or as someone thinking about undertaking an apprenticeship, it's not a pathway to a job. It is a job. So this is not just training or classroom training that leads to an employment opportunity. It's not a short-term, work experience type of activity. It's a very structured training program that is around in a workplace. So there's on-the-job and off-the-job training. So the person is learning skills or an occupation in a real workplace. Importantly, they're being paid to learn, so you're earning and learning. But there is also related instruction. So whatever occupation you're pursuing, you would also undertake relevant studies. And in the digital age we live, that could be classroom-based, it could be VR, it could be online, it could be employer-based training. So it's very flexible for employers. If they've already got some training that they're doing in their organisations, they can incorporate that into apprenticeship. But the cornerstone of apprenticeship is a job, and that's why when I talk to employers, the very first question I ask them is, what is your skills need? So that's really where the conversation should start with an employer, looking at their skills need. For a participant, it really offers the opportunity to learn in a different way. And, experiential-based learning works for so many people. And the idea of apprenticeship, the US was slower to catch on than a lot of countries. The Commonwealth countries and parts of Europe have had apprenticeship embedded since medieval times, actually. Whereas in the US, only, a decade or so back, apprenticeship was really just seen as something for building and construction industries. But, fast forward to current day, we're seeing apprenticeships in pretty much every occupation you could imagine.
In doing that, are there certain strategies you're using that either for the job seeker with a disability or for the employer, have you had to change the core model in any way or customize it in any way because we're working with individuals with disabilities?
The thing about an apprenticeship is that it is very customizable to the individual. So regardless of each individual circumstance, the model is very very adaptable. We're able to adapt, modify, and so to answer, no one person is the same. It's we're working with people here, not a product you're making on a manufacturing production line that's all going to come out the same. So there's definitely elements that you could build into an apprenticeship program. And one thing that I've seen that's particularly important, when we're working with folks with disabilities, is the idea of structured mentoring and support. We want to make sure that the person doesn't just get the job, we want them to keep the job. And so, if you are looking to take on an apprenticeship or you're looking to start an apprenticeship program, definitely look for something that has an element of mentoring and coaching built in, which is generally not the direct supervisor of the apprentice. And there's plenty of different creative ways you can do that. But generally speaking, I do find some employers have, we'll call them misconceptions. There might be some myths about, I can't start a program with people with disabilities because I'm going to have to undertake all these, it's going to be costly. And the truth be known that pretty much every state has a Department of Rehabilitation or a group who can actually help employers with any workplace accommodation. So in my home state in California, the Department of Rehabilitation is very easy to actually engage with and work with. And, regardless of whatever the circumstance or situation, one that comes up a lot is transportation, how folks are going to get to the job. And we've been able to, work with that. So I think it's really, really important to understand that this is highly customizable for the individual, but also for the employer.
You're speaking of, I believe, the Ready, Willing, and Able program that you're doing with the California Department of Rehabilitation with a pilot in Orange County. Can you go into a little bit more depth about how this program is structured, what kind of career opportunities in terms of apprenticeships you're working with, and how are we doing so far?
Yeah, great. So this is one example of, we really wanted to set up a program and really give it focus. So in collaboration with the California Department of Rehabilitation, we launched the program 1 year ago. Actually, it's the anniversary this week, so it's great to be on the program. So 1 year ago, and the department wanted to try new approaches to creating long-term employment opportunities for Californians with disabilities. And so the cornerstone of this program is really engaging employers in a partnership model. So structured training's at the core of this program. We determined from the outset the exact types of additional support and accommodations that each individual may require in the workplace. So we're really building that capacity from the start. The program, I mentioned before, focus. It's really important. I said, ask an employer what their skills need is, and sometimes you get 20 or 30 occupations. And my recommendation is to focus on, 5 or 6 occupations. So our program is looking for higher skilled types of opportunities, and we've been able to create apprenticeships as dental assistants, spectacle lens dispensing, medical biller and coder, pharmacy technician, and we're now starting to work on CNC machining apprentice program. And our target was to create 100 apprenticeships within a 24-month period, and at the 12-month anniversary, we're well and truly over the halfway mark. But the focus is at the moment in Orange County and in the field of medical. That said, we've had huge interest from around the state of California, but also other parts of the country, where people are saying, well, what's the secret sauce? Why is this program working? What are the key elements? And I think really there is no great secret sauce. Most of the elements already exist. It's about bringing things together in a particular way. There was already some great mentoring and support available in Orange County. So we've got varying non-profit agencies who've joined our partnership. We found some great training providers. The community colleges are fantastic, workforce boards. So our role is really bringing people together and setting up the programs and working with some of the complexities of registration. We're able to help employers with that. What we're really calling out to employers to do is just to create the slots or the opportunities, and we'll be able to help them with the rest. So it's a great program, and it's very personally fulfilling, working in smaller numbers to we usually work in. I've had the opportunity to meet most of the participants, and for us, every job placement is something to celebrate. It's fantastic.
Oh, sounds wonderful. Can you help us understand a little bit about the difference between registered apprenticeship programs and what I believe you also create, are a kind of a pre-apprenticeship training program? And how do the two work together?
A pre-apprenticeship usually involves teaching fundamental skills of a profession and providing an opportunity for trial work placement. So it enables both the employers and employees to interact or to sample, or I suppose get a taste of the workplace before fully committing to the apprenticeship program. Some of these apprenticeship programs, depending on the occupation, can be several years. They can be, a minimum of, if it's a federally registered program, which most of our programs are, that's got to be a minimum of 2,000 hours in the workplace and 144 hours of related instruction. So that's that classroom training we talked about. But depending on the industry and the occupation, some of these apprenticeships are actually go up to 3, 4, or even I know of some apprenticeships, which are 5 years in duration. So I think that's one of the advantages of a pre-apprenticeship program. And we're also able to cover off some basic workplace skills. We really want to make sure that people have the confidence to undertake just interacting with people, working with teams. We often have people who want to start an apprenticeship, but they might not have, basic things like a bank account, or so we cover off some financial literacy and numeracy. And so we're starting a program actually in the Greater Los Angeles area for high school seniors and juniors, where we're looking to expand that. Well, I suppose it's not really pre-apprenticeship. I'd more almost call it, we're running over this summer a lot of pre-employment training workshops. And also we're able to give one-on-one career advice and set up a career plan for high school seniors and juniors within the Los Angeles region. Then we also are able to facilitate work experience. So once a person understands, what the particular occupation they'd like to work in, we're able to do that. And all of these things really are building confidence. And I should say that if a participant does attend one of our programs or one of our workshops, that any of that time they've spent would actually be deducted from their hours of their apprenticeship. So it's this thing called recognition of prior learning. So that's a website we can maybe put up on the podcast later. It's another part of IWSI America's activities called Career Launchpad. And there's some great interactive tools which people can see on our website. It's a fully accessible website. We're pretty excited to have launched that initiative as well.
Oh, that sounds wonderful. A question I often hear is, well, apprenticeships might be all right for people with not very significant disabilities. In your work here in the U.S., Australia, other countries, are you working with people that represent the diversity of disability, different types of disability, severity of disability? Has that been a part of what IWSI has accomplished?
Yeah, look, absolutely. We've just had some great success placing 21 people with apprenticeships with Down syndrome into really, I'm trying to think of the different types of occupations, but we've about 4 or 5 different industries. And one of the things that, we really wanted to do is we're looking for sustainable careers, not just, a job where, somebody is going to be paid minimum wage or, the like. So we really work hard to work with employers, and we're saying that in a sort of a strange twist, COVID was so devastating for many people and many employers, but we're saying to employers, this has created an opportunity to rethink your hiring strategies. So I do like to talk to employers, and it is interesting. Sometimes they say, look, this job, we'd need these certain types of, the person would need to have this sort of background to take on this career. And I do like asking why. And quite often you find it's the status quo. It's well, that's the way, and I'm not quite sure. And so we really start to drill into the actual activities that the person will be undertaking. And there are quite a few, almost I call them aha moments, where when you unpack some of these jobs, you realise that there really isn't a reason why that couldn't be open to a much broader group of people. So we're saying to sort of one message to employers is to really use this opportunity, this post-COVID world, as an opportunity to rethink your hiring strategies, because there is this huge pool of available talent pretty much sitting on the sidelines. We have in California and some of these activities that we're running and programs we're running around the country, including the program in Kansas, we're seeing huge oversupply of people. We've got more people wanting to undertake the opportunities than we actually have the slots available with employers. So in a call out to employers, if you're thinking about doing this, we'd love to talk to you. We've got a great network of people around the country. There really is an opportunity to, as the chairman of our company would say, I don't think it's breaching any copyright infringement, but he's like, do it now, or do it straight away. We should say he's very much, don't sit on your hands. Don't be concerned about where the economy's going. Take a long-range view and broaden your perspective about who it is you might employ. And there's some fantastic people out there just waiting for a start.
Yeah, great message. And when this podcast goes live, hopefully you'll see some people headed your way, employers headed your way with wanting to learn more. And related to that, it sounds like you definitely tap into existing apprenticeship opportunities, but it sounds like also, do you actually create apprenticeship opportunities, provide technical assistance to employers who may not have thought about apprenticeship or have apprenticeships, but really haven't thought about how, as you say, customize them to support individuals with disabilities or others with maybe some unique challenges of learning?
Yeah, so most of our work is built on creating new opportunities and new relationships. And we've actually developed a number of award-winning apprenticeship programs, one with ExxonMobil, another one with the Nissan Motor Company that have been running for nearly a decade each. But that's not to say that a small or mid-sized company can't participate. And I think that really we are able to offer technical assistance, and we do work on some programs with the Urban Institute, and they have a fantastic program running at the moment, which is it's called the Youth Apprenticeship Program Initiative, and that's specifically for 16 to 21 or 24-year-olds, and we're able to offer technical assistance in any occupation. That said, bit strange. Our mission is to help employers get into the world of apprenticeship. We like when there's a challenge, and we'll always find a way to make it work. So if an employer needs some technical assistance, reach out to us. We've got a great network around the country. And if we're unable to answer a specific question, we definitely know who the right people to connect with is. There is a very, very strong camaraderie of apprenticeship building in the country. There's some great apprenticeship networks, and there are some people who are very passionate about the cause. So this morning I was just talking to someone about, they were looking at taking on veterans, and there were some challenges around pay rates, on how people, when they're leaving the services, how they'd be able to support their families. Was I aware of any programs that would be able to support this group of people as they transition? And I didn't have the immediate answer. I do know that there are support programs. So I've reached out to the network, and I'm hoping by the end of today we'll be able to go back to this prospective employer with some options. So, no barrier is insurmountable. And please, I'd say to people, don't be concerned about any myths or misconceptions, this word of apprenticeship. At the end of the day, it actually is one of the world's oldest forms of learning, which is, passing on a skill through hands-on learning. It can appear complex, but, with the registration process, but there are plenty of organisations and community agencies who are there to help. So reach out to us, reach out to the Urban Institute. They've got a great apprenticeship centre on their website. There's also other agencies around the country who could help out prospective employers.
Let me switch us from this notion of really anyone can do it. You've got the technical assistance and training program. There are others, as you mentioned, have it as well. I'm not sure they're achieving quite the success you are, but they'll get there. What about policy? With your efforts at expanding apprenticeships as a career pathway option for individuals with disabilities, youth, and working age adults, are there policy changes that you could recommend that would further advance apprenticeships as an option, but more so bring individuals with disabilities into career paths that truly offers economic advancement long term?
I think back to the homeland, mind you, I have lived and worked in the US for a decade, but back to Australia. Australia is you probably know, has similar land mass to the US, but there's not many people live in that centre of Australia. In fact, the population is middle to high, 20 million, 26, 28 million. Australia has 500,000 apprentices, which if you take off the number of people registered in military programs in the US, it's the same number on a much, much larger population. So there's a huge opportunity for the government to expand. And I think there's been almost like a program approach, and I'd like to see a much more systematic approach. And what I mean by that is there's a lot of well-meaning programs, there's funding for these programs, but that's not going to build a long-term sustainable system where we see intermediaries able to spring up and be able to look at long-term options. And of course, as we all know, if you are relying on government funding to start programs and that funding stream stops, the program stops, it's not a great outcome for participants. One thing I should say about apprenticeship, of course, is that the model is highly, funded by the employers because they're actually paying the participant the training wage. But I'd also, encourage policymakers to look at how the system works in countries like Germany, Korea, the UK, and probably, the country that I hold in the highest regard is actually the Swiss. The Swiss system is fantastic. I think we need to incentivise at all levels. A lot of countries actually offer employers, a modest incentive of about $4,000 to take on an apprentice for an employer, which is certainly not designed to cover the person's wages, but it covers, some registrations and mentoring, coaching, coursework, course materials. And that, of course, isn't paid the day the apprentice starts. A lot of countries I'm referring to, that might be $1,500 at the 3-month mark, and the remainder of the funding on successful completion. And I really think we need to set ambitious enrolment targets. There is high-level bipartisan support, I'm pleased to report, but we need to take some of this interest and actually turn it into frontline applications. So I think there's an opportunity to say, we've reached some great milestones, but a systematic approach, actually set up a system, look at using technology for registration. In Australia, once again, to register an apprenticeship can be done in a matter of hours or, a day. In the US, run by some states, it can take weeks and even months. And we do see employers, getting a little bit frustrated with the red tape. But with 10 million job vacancies, it seems to me that we've been underinvesting in skills development, and I think apprenticeship would be a great tool for government or governments, not just the federal government, but the state governments, to invest in and really use the technical expertise that exists and make sure that, the funding is being applied to, organisations or structures that really are using global best practice. We do live in the age of globalisation and technological change, and there is so much information out there about what other countries have done. So I think there's an opportunity for the US to certainly not directly copy any of these systems, but to create a hybrid using the best that's available from these systems around the world. So huge opportunities there, but I think there is definitely some policy opportunities.
I'm not as familiar with what's going on in other countries as you are. Do any of these countries that have really much more investment in apprenticeships, have they set utilization goals for individuals with disabilities? Is there any country that's done that?
So there's much opportunity to expand registered apprenticeship as an employment pathway in the country. So Over 50% of Germans join the workforce through apprenticeship programs. 50%. That's incredible, isn't it? In the US, it's less than 2%. I think that our program, our Ready, Willing and Able program, is one of the early adopters in the US, and we're very open book about sharing what we've learned. We'd love to help other organisations who have ambitions to set up programs for people with disabilities, but a huge opportunity. Yeah, I think the labour force participation rate for people with disabilities has reached about 40% last month, but we've got a long way to go to eradicate the disability employment gap. So the labour force participation rate for people without disabilities is 77.6%. So that's nearly a 40% difference. We're excited. We're ready, willing, and able to help. Pardon the pun, but there is definitely a gap, and we do need to close it. So we're positive, but we do need some help from policymakers. And once again, maybe we could all get together, have a round table, a very focused round table, and move some of these ideas forward, to make sure that we're trying to close that gap.
Fantastic. Well, I have really appreciated this conversation. I've learned a lot. Nicholas Wyman is really making a difference in how employers understand the opportunities for inclusive apprenticeships, and we hope his thoughts and insights will inspire you to look differently at both policies and practices that advance career options for individuals with disabilities. Can you just leave us with maybe your what's the best point of contact with your organization? We'll also certainly include it when the podcast becomes live.
Sure, absolutely. So the website for IWSI America is www.iwsiamerica.org, and I'd be personally love to hear from employers, policymakers. My email is nwyman@iwsiamerica.org. So please reach out to us. We're also on Twitter. You can send us a direct message, but have a look on the internet. You'll find us, and we'd love to connect with you. And it's been a great. It's always interesting. It really is about starting the conversation and continuing the conversation, Michael. So I think today has also helped me. It's some of your questions gave me some things to think about, some food for thought. So I've really enjoyed talking to you and as well, and hope the listeners found today's podcast interesting and inspirational. So once again, thanks for having me on the program.
Thank you so much.
You've been listening to Let's Get to Work, Reimagining Disability Inclusive Employment Policy, brought to you by the Burton Blatt Institute at Syracuse University. Don't forget to subscribe to the podcast at Apple Podcasts, Google Podcasts, or wherever you listen to podcasts. The contents of this podcast were developed under a grant from the National Institute on Disability, Independent Living, and Rehabilitation Research, NIDLR Grant Number 90RTEM0006. NIDLR is a center within the Administration for Community Living, ACL, Department of Health and Human Services, HHS. The contents of this podcast do not necessarily represent the policy of NIDLR, ACL, or HHS, and you should not assume endorsement by the federal government.